Hello, Seiiti Arata. When you find people talking alone to themselves, it looks like that person is crazy, doesn't it? But talking to yourself is a normal practice that everybody does, including you. And this private conversation has several uses, including to increase your focus and your concentration. And you can talk to yourself just in your head without moving your lips, or you can talk out loud. Is it the same thing? Well, not always. Our thoughts and our speech are not fully connected, and because of that, we talk to ourselves. And this private conversation helps to bridge the gap between our various chaotic thoughts and our slightly more organized speech. That's how we improve our cognition. We create sentences and we can communicate. And you focus better when you talk to yourself correctly. First, I'm gonna tell you about a scientific experiment. See, if you keep saying nonsense like blah 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 while you're studying, you're less likely to process and absorb the information. And to learn more about this, you can search for articles on articulatory suppression. But this is obvious. If I keep saying nonsense in the middle of my study session, it is obvious that my retention is worse. But I had to tell you this because I'm going to give you now a practical tip that is going to be the exact opposite. When you verbalize ideas related to the task that you're doing, you improve your concentration. For example, if you speak the name of an object that you're searching for, you're more likely to identify that object. Maybe that's why we have the habit of walking around the house saying out loud, well, my wallet, where is my wallet? Did anybody see my wallet? Where did I leave my wallet? So when I say out loud, wallet, I increase my focus to identify where the wallet is. Motivational phrases help more than neutral phrases. The perceived fatigue and pain reduce your physical performance whenever you're doing some sports practice or a resistance test. If you hear motivational phrases, your brain will have resistance to deal with fatigue. Do you think so? There is an experiment on physical performance in which scientists were splitting different volunteers into groups to test the impact of motivational phrases, and both groups of volunteers had to ride a bike with maximum effort, and one group heard neutral phrases and another group heard motivational phrases. And the result is that the group that heard motivational phrases performed better than the group that was hearing only the neutral phrases. Do you understand? It is more or less like getting two equally prepared athletes, one listening to some economics audiobook and the other one listening to a motivational audiobook. And probably the one listening to the motivational audio would be able to work harder and have better performance. Because of that, it does not make much sense for you to engage in negative talk, defeatist language, such as saying out loud or even silent thoughts, things like, I'm an idiot, I'm never gonna make it. I should better give up now before I cause problems, before I embarrass myself in front of other people. It is important that you refer to yourself in the third person to have a new perspective. I talked about this already in the previous episode. Talking to yourself can increase your confidence, your motivation, and this is even stronger when you speak in the third person. When soccer player legend Pelé says to himself, okay, now Pelé is going to do the dribbling. Great, now Pelé is going to kick for the goal. Pelé is talking to himself in the third person. And several other athletes are known to refer to themselves in the third person, such as Andre Agassi, who in his autobiography says that tennis probably is the sport in which the athlete speaks to himself more than any other sport. It is common to hear him saying in a court, okay, come on, Andre, now let's hit with strength and precision, yes! Does that technique work to also motivate you to increase your general performance? Well, the answer is yes. Talking about yourself in the third person increases your self-distancing, which can increase your ability to look at a situation from a different perspective and with less individual bias. Now, you don't have to be a high-performance athlete or even a narcissistic person to refer to yourself in the third person. There is even a well-known interview in which Malala uses the third person to answer a question that people ask, what would she do in a dangerous situation? And she would say, well, Malala would do this and that. Try to use the third person. You see, you can gain a new perspective, a new point of view, and question yourself better. You can use your name to calm down. Now, imagine that you're part of a scientific experiment in which the scientist shows you a highly disturbing image of you in a life-threatening situation like a murderer pointing a gun at you. And the scientist asks you to Talk about this image. How would you say your life? But use the first person. Then you will have to say something like, well, I would try to disarm him. I would run in a zigzag. I would cry and beg to spare my life. In any case, you would probably remain upset and in a state of stress. Now, if the scientist asked you to speak in a third person, your emotional involvement in a situation would be reduced. But my name is Seiiti, right? So I would say, Seiiti would use a negotiation technique to change the killer's attitude. Well, Seiiti is going to hit the killer's throat. Speaking in a third person, using name, helps you to have more rational decisions. Compared to the first person speech, the electrical signals in your brain indicate that you're much more calm when you're talking to yourself, referring to yourself in the third person. This discovery indicates that you can overcome situations of phobia, situations of stress, by using your name. So if your name is Alex, instead of saying, I don't need to be afraid to get on the airplane, you can say, okay, Alex, you don't have to be afraid to get on the airplane. If you want to improve it even more, you can even reframe the sentence to a positive tone by removing the word fear, which is a little bit negative, and say, Alex, the plane is safe. It goes through different types of inspections. You can go in peacefully. I teach this technique in the focus course, in which I explain the technique of you adopting the perspective of a cameraman who is filming your own life. You thus gain a new vision with the necessary distance to have a better evaluation and decisions. You have probably found yourself in some rare situations talking to yourself in the third person, and that is normal. There is no need for you to be ashamed or scared. It's just a different way of thinking that can help you. Different ways of talking to yourself trigger different ways of thinking in your brain, especially in the cerebral cortex, which takes care of more developed functions such as language, and also in the amygdala, which also take care of more primitive functions such as fear. Basically, when you refer to yourself in the third person, you gain greater distance, and this gives you greater self-control and a more competent performance, more clear thinking. Of a video game. You're not the character that is there in the middle of the game. You're the person with the control in your hand moving the character. So, how do you talk to yourself? You need to do three things. First, you need to use your own name and gain more distance and a more objective perspective of the situation. Second, you must be precise and specific about the kind of action you should take. And third, you must use positive statements to understand the larger context of who you are in the face of the situation. And as an additional gift for you, who have the habit of staying here until the end, I'm going to give you a very practical example. Now, imagine that your name is William, and you're going to do a job interview. You're feeling a little bit nervous, so you can use a little bit this example. You can say, William, you can be calm. It's not the first job interview you have. It's not going to be the last interview. There's plenty of opportunities. This interview is for a company that is very good. The salary is great, but you can breathe easy because, the best thing is to be calm and professional. You have all the necessary technical skills. You are a professional of integrity, loyalty. That's very important in a management position like this one. And will you also remember, tell about the internationalization project that you managed in the other company last year. Even if they choose another candidate, well, you're going to have a great presentation. They'll always remember you. Notice, in this example, William is using his name to be emotionally detached and calm, which is one of the main objectives that we're searching for. He made positive statements about the professional qualities that he possesses, and he was specific to highlight useful actions to do, such as mentioning a practical case in which he managed a special project. This is just an example for you to adapt according to the challenges you have ahead. You need to learn how to control better your own thoughts in order to live better. In the focus course, we teach you how to master your cognitive model, focusing on what really matters. That's why I invite you now to start your own improvement process by visiting arata.se/focus course.